Alrighty, guys, welcome to this week's PDOCS live stream, the first one here in September. And if some of you in the group, I posted stuff on both my group and my timeline, but as I talked about over the weekend and yesterday in some posts, I just got back from my family camping trip, which we do every Labor Day weekend. It's great. Our whole family gets, aunts, uncles, cousins, friends, gets multiple cabins, tent sites, and we all hang out, party, eat good. Um, you know, this campground in particular has live events and stuff for the kids, rock wall, live band. So really cool. But anyway, I digress. It's good to be back on the live stream here and, producing content and trainings. This one specifically, as I talked about, is going to be about appointment setting, primarily through DMs and organic outreach, which I talk about a lot, and I've recorded a lot of different content and trainings, and my courses all cover that. But it is ever changing, and that's why always being active in the game is super, super important. I don't totally outsource and delegate, and you'll see some of the examples I'm going to go through here on today's live stream. I'll show you some of the conversations and some of the appointments I still book. Is that my primary, duty? No. Like when I first started, or a lot of people watching, like you guys, organic outreach and marketing should probably be your primary activity right now. And I don't think a lot of people view it that way. So I just want to touch on that first and foremost, and then go over the outline of what we're going to cover here before I screen share and dive into, the lesson side of things. But I really want to cover the main thing I think people don't always realize that they're doing more in the conversation. We'll talk a little about the outreach and the difference. I mean, here we're going to go through, direct versus indirect messaging, cold versus warm, and I'm going to dissect and break that down. But I want to start off with what we should always be keeping in mind of what we're trying to do. Dives in a lot with our PDOCS ECO framework, which stands for engage, assess, assign, call to action, and obligation. And what we're really doing in that case is, I was actually on a call with some DM setters today, and we were talking about this. And I was like, guys, like, this is what it always boils down to. In every conversation I have, it boils down to this. Sometimes am I doing it on a 15-minute call? Maybe. I'm always trying to do it in Messenger. It all depends on the prospect and warm versus cold and the situation. So we'll get into that. But regardless, this is what we need to be doing. Like, we realize that somebody has a problem, right? Whatever. They comment, let's say that they make a post, talking about not being able to close enough deals, not being able to book enough calls, not being able to get enough leads, whatever it is. And then you're like, generally speaking, we're either going to see a post about that. That's less often. Usually you're going to see a post about a topic. And then in the comments, people might say they're struggling. So don't just look at the posts for engagement, look at the comments. And we always want to start with something that is obviously within the realm of our expertise. If we're doing offer creation, we want to be answering and only looking at posts that are around offer creation, monetization, turning somebody's expertise into a program, all those type of things. And then you don't always just have to look at the post. You might say, oh, that post doesn't, how do I really go, chime in there? And you usually can, but a lot of times I'm looking in the comments for people saying, oh, I'd like that result, or, oh, I'm struggling with that. And then I chime in, hey, man, you mind if I weigh in on this? I see people struggling all the time. So the first thing we're doing is identifying a problem that is within the realm of expertise that we solve. And then we first want to ask for permission. And it's all about how you position it and how you phrase it and how you go about it, right? And when you're like, hey, man, you mind if I weigh in on this? I've actually had some success achieving the results he talked about, actually a little better conversions or whatever it is, right? And they're like, yeah, sure. So I'm like, cool, right? And I need one specific example, so it doesn't really matter which one. I guess lead gen would be the most common, right? Hey, I just don't have enough leads, or I don't know where to find leads. So we'll just go with that because it's very basic. This can apply to anything else, offer creation, fitness, ad agencies, data company. It applies to everything. This part doesn't change. But what we always want to be doing, and again, I'm going to pick lead generation here, just very basic, right? Let's say, hey, man, I'm not generating enough leads, right? And or I haven't got that result. I'm not sure how to get leads, and they're very sparse and few and far between, right? And then you chime in, hey, I figured out ways to do some consistent, predictable lead gen organically. You mind if I share some tips? No, man, sure, go ahead. Hey, cool. So this is what I normally see. And then here's where I inject the knowledge gap, right? In this case, what I normally see is people don't realize how many leads are already in their warm network and in the, in broad daylight, basically. I can hop on a brief 15-minute call with you. And this is being very, very direct, right? In this case, but I can hop on a brief call with you. Actually, I wouldn't even do that in the knowledge gap. So, but in this case, when somebody, this one kind of direct because we're calling out a very specific problem. So I might just say, let me hop on a 15-minute call and I can run you through the exact process and screen share. It's a lot more difficult than you hear, right? And that's going like super, super direct, which you can do. But a lot of times the knowledge gap is, hey man, I'm able to help people generate an additional 15 leads per week organically from their existing network and a few simple strategies. See, where most people go wrong is they start to look at all these, courses and tactics and strategies for lead gen, but they don't even look at the low-hanging fruit and what's in their existing network. What I've done with 15 past clients or whatever your number is, right? What I've done when I work with my clients is we dive into their network and we create some posts that bring out the low-hanging fruit and people interested in those solutions or those products and services and get some immediate appointments booked. In addition, we start some events or challenges or master classes which draw in people, and then we put in a booking call to action really quickly. So do you think your expertise, you could put together a small little event? Yeah, I totally could. And then what they're doing here, and what I just did is I did a lot of aspects there, but what I just did, their brain is going to kind of go from, hey, what Ray just said makes sense. Nobody's really told me that before. And then it goes to how do I find out more? That's just, that's just common psychology, right? Like anything. For me, and a lot of you guys know watching this, wherever you're watching, right? Like I have back problems. And if somebody came to me and told me some unexpected solution that no one's ever said that totally made sense and I bought in, it would be almost impossible for me to not be curious or intrigued enough to want to find out more, right? So that's what I dive right into at that point. And after that, and that's basically going through the eco. So what I did was I engaged them right off the bat, right? I saw a problem and then I got permission. And then I assessed where they were at really quickly by the result that they're not getting enough leads. And then I assigned a new frame when I jumped in with the knowledge gap. And that's where it kind of makes a twist. And then the thing when you assign a new frame, and before I go to the call to action, is I always say, hey, does that make sense? And you're looking for one of three frames of acceptance there, right? Yes, that totally made sense, Ray. How do I find out more, right? That's what you're going to get most often when you do this, right? You might get a medium frame of acceptance, meaning that kind of made sense, but I'm not sure how that would work for me. Or you might get a very low acceptance that you either have the wrong prospect or you did this process wrong if you're getting a very low. But a low is just, no, that doesn't make any sense, right? Or I've heard that 1,000 times before. That shouldn't be the response you get when you go through this process. But if you do, that's kind of the cause of it. So I would go to my next message and the call to action a little different based on the frame. But when you do this right, and I probably 80% of the time get that strong frame of acceptance. And from there, it's very simple. I'm just like, cool, man. So what we should do next is here's a quick little video of how I help my clients, generate those leads organically so you can have a better idea of the process. And then here's my link to book a 15-minute call, and we'll build that out custom for your network. And I'll go in and look at your audience and exactly who we're targeting so we can build that out for you. Does that sound fair? And they're usually going to come back saying, yeah, that sounds great, man. Cool. Here's that link. Please check out the video, and here's my booking link. Please select the date and time that's best for yourself. Talk soon, man. Boom. Then we go in and do that. So that's the call to action. And then last is the obligation within eco, where it's just holding them accountable. A lot of people, maybe with automation and with GHL and all the stuff that people are using, but I know a lot of people that watch these don't do this and are doing a lot of this manually. So it's good to do touch point messages. Generally speaking, I have kind of a standard operating procedure when I'm doing organic. After they've booked and I've confirmed and all that went according to plan, the next thing I do is a 24-hour touch point message. Hey JP, look forward to seeing you here tomorrow at 3 p.m. Just making sure that you've had a chance to check out that video. Looking forward to speaking. Right? You're usually going to get a response, and again, you just do it very personable. Hey, are we still on for tomorrow's call at 2? Right? Like, you know what I mean? Be very personal about whether you're texting it or whether you're speaking it. Just talk like you're talking to your friend. That's another thing that's overlooked with outreach. Everybody thinks they have to take on this persona to represent an offer or an audience, but you still have to be authentic to yourself to ever get people to buy into what you're doing. So I do a 24-hour message and then a 30-minute message, either 60 or 30. Figure out which works best. I like 30 minutes. Closer to the call, the better at this point. Hey, man, we're still on schedule for a half hour. All my calls are going according to schedule. I don't plan on being behind. See you there. Boom, just another touch point. And those are what I call accountability or obligation, just holding somebody accountable so they show up to the call. It's amazing how those two little messages that take you 2 seconds increase show up rates by about 20% in offers I work in because they're skipping that. Many sales processes, they go right from, hey, book a call, and then nobody speaks to you, get on the call, And sometimes that person going on the call isn't the same person that booked, depending on your system or how big your company is. You're booking them to a different team member and they've had no engagement, and then it's just cold. And like that's where you get no show rates. A setter sets them in a DM to some advisor. They just book. They're like, hey, I booked them. They call. They celebrate. Then the guy never shows up. You don't make money off calls that don't show up. I don't care what kind of compensation you're in. In the sales game, they have to show up. Sometimes you're paid on that, which isn't a bad thing. Show ups are great, and of course, we're usually paid on compensation on closed deals. So I just wanted to cover that before I go through some of the now the applications of how I implement this and how I teach it to people, which I think will be super helpful. So I'm going to share my screen now, and let's share the entire screen in case I go into multiple tabs. I'm certainly guilty of that. And what I want to first do is go into my DM Setter training portal. So whether you are doing this for yourself, as I said at the beginning of the call, I just want to reiterate, a lot of us solopreneurs or one or two people or a coach or an agency that just got a small little operation or just getting launched, what it comes down to, what your number one priority should be right now is organic outreach and marketing and speaking and getting in conversations and talking about your product, your solutions, et cetera, what we're going to discuss today. So I still don't think enough people put enough emphasis on that as their main task. If you don't currently have clients and paying customers, your number one task should be outreach. I don't really care how you're doing it, but we're covering organic and through DMs today, right? So when I come here, and I just redesigned this very, very simply, and I just gave it to a few new setters recently, and we had a call with them earlier today. So first off, they come in and they see this main doc, which is where I want them to start. And when they click on this, oh, actually, I already had it open, but either way, we'll reopen it. When they click on this, kind of says start here in the title. And then the first thing as it loads, and this is for, I build this out for everybody, and then there's custom aspects. So I'll cover that when it's applicable. But this basically gives you DMs that are start here, right? Some of you will be setting for the Sales Lab, one of my brands, some folks for other companies and offers. Regardless, these steps and tasks must be viewed, implemented, and executed upon for success. Very plain and simple. And then start here. So they have a quick little overview of how to use this portal, which I'm running you through here on this call a little bit so it makes sense, or here on this training, I should say. But all the setters start here. Make sure you understand how to navigate the portal so there's no confusion. And then they have 6 trainings to go through, which number one, everybody should know when you're representing a brand or using organic via your profile, you need to prime it to be in alignment with that brand, that offer. That's priming your cover photo. This gives you the whole training. There's 4 aspects that I always focus on with priming your profile. So you've got to go in and do that first before you do anything if you're going on to a new offer. And I give everybody, that's some of the custom stuff that you would get from that brand owner or that business owner that you would use to prime your profile. Really quickly, I want people to understand how to use Facebook groups for engagement and lead generation, understand the overview of it. And then more specifically, organic outreach using groups. Once you understand the engagement and the lead gen aspect, then you want to understand the outreach to go and start with that, and not just understand it by seeing other people do it, but how do I generate that? Then we go into my cold DM approach. So after I've done outreach, we have to ultimately get into the DMs, and a lot of what I do and what I'm going to show you is in the DMs. Personally, I use a DM voice note approach that you guys have heard, seen. There's a training on it. I'll be happy to send to anybody if they'd like. But this breaks it down with examples. I just go live on my call and just start doing voice notes. So you see, and then I break down the thought process and the structure behind it. Then I give them an organic outreach recap checklist. So any of these tutorials, just so you guys know, also has an accompanying, if I go over a document or a resource, it's in a separate folder that accompanies and they can go access that. And I'm going to get to that in a minute. But they have a checklist of what they should be doing. And then I give them the content blueprint, because now I want them to start creating their own content, whether it's on their own timeline, within my Facebook group, the group of the business owner, whatever. There's all kinds of different areas. And then next, see the folder with further tutorials, right? So there's additional tutorials. So those are the 6 people need to go through really quickly to start implementing and get going. Now, once they do, they have all these additional or advanced trainings that are going to pertain to every aspect of what my setters do. And then we get on 2 calls per week, myself and my team of setters, whether they're my companies, other companies, and we're always reviewing their progress each week. They're bringing up and screen sharing their posts, their replies, their conversations. And I'm like, hey, man, if you just tweak this, how do you think that would have worked? Or, hey, if you said this instead of this, and they're just always learning, getting those little, oh, shoot, I see how to do it. And when you get that live in real time, in addition with the proper, tactics and tutorials, it really helps people get success quickly, which I've found. Another reason I did this today was I found there's a lot of problems right now with getting setters to get results, with getting them to stay in offers, with getting them effective, really just getting them effective. We just boil it down to that. Uh, Now that these setters are getting going, each day, hey, what are you focusing on today? And let's say it's more content creation. Here's an additional tutorial on that. Or what if I'm struggling with what, why, and where should I be posting? Here's a specific thing on that. Here's some advanced organic tactics. Once you got it down, let's get to some of the higher level people, but I wouldn't start there, right? Um, you know, Facebook friend request outreach. There's a lot of confusion, and this has evolved. When I first started organic, as opposed to now, the parameters and the restrictions are night and day here. So best practices here to not get your account restricted, banned. I don't teach mass outreach. I teach sniper, minimal, hit the right people and get in conversations rather than let's try to hit 50 or 100 people. And as a byproduct, 3 or 5 will speak with us, right? That's not how I go about it. I do a very targeted approach, and you guys will see the metrics. I've run through that with you before on trainings. I'll go through it here because I definitely flying through, and I'll have time here. But again, so let's say we get into 2 steps or messenger scripts. I have a tutorial on it, and then again, the accompanying document to any of these is in the one last folder that I'm going to run you through, where is also the metrics and the accountability and the KPIs for my team. So I forget some of these for some reason. Usually when I hover over, it comes up. But this, I think this is, now I'm curious which one this is, just like, oh, what group should I be joining and how do I map that out? Yeah, I give you, so people struggle with that. And there's a document that gives them 30 or 40 suggestions of groups that they could go join right off the bat. And then this shows them how to find them custom to their specific niche and offer. So yeah, organic messenger and outreach, which we're covering a little today. So priming your profile, number 1, that's also in the loom over there. Sometimes I have duplicates. Understanding prospect awareness and sophistication level. Once you're starting to get good at this, this is what really was a game changer for me. You guys have heard me talk about this quite a few times. Once I really dialed this in and changed lead types and my content to fit the sophistication level of my ideal audience or that group, which I never really focused on, I was just like, oh, this content's good. Could be good, but if you put it in the wrong audience or the wrong sophistication level, it's not going to engage. So that was a big one. Right when we go into priming your profile, we talk about building out your tagline or your bio. Let's say Facebook is 101 characters. So here's a strategy for how you build out effective bios. Just anything they're going to need in addition is in here and should be properly labeled. This one, I don't put in sequential order for a reason, because I want them to kind of be a la carte at what they're working at, and my guys develop at different levels. So there's no way I can set these in a chronological order the way I did with the first 6, and it'll never make sense for everybody. So that aspect's a little hodgepodge, which I, again, make them go through a video and describe. Go through a tutorial and describe this. But yeah, so, and then the last aspect of what I give to my team, and then I'll briefly cover the 2 custom parts that go in after this. Actually, this will have some of the custom, I think, because it's for, excuse me, my own brand, but it'd be different if you were representing a different brand. So this is basically every tutorial that I just went through. They had the effectively engaging, came with this Google Doc that breaks it down. So they have the links and the access to everything that was covered. The Facebook groups I recommend could join. Here's the doc where you can see the whole list of them. The outreach and messenger method. The copy, these look the same, but they're actually different documents, even though I use the same photo. I love that when we use that in an ad back in the day. We use that in a PDOCS ad that crushed back in the day. Our sales lab messenger scripts. So like I talked about, 2-step scripts or messenger scripts. Those are usually when we're offering a resource value, right? Most people watching know what a 2-step is. If not, you unknowingly opt into about 100 of them a year if you don't know what it's called. But it just means somebody's giving you something for free and you say, yeah, give it to me. And then they're like, okay, cool, check your DM, right? And most of them don't do this very well. I have a script built out and then I build it out a little. This needs very minor tweaking. Anybody can figure out how to customize this to their offer, but you have to do that with any script or framework. You always are customizing to your offer based off research and your own, knowledge of the offer. So yeah, really quickly, let me bring up my accountability and quick metrics. And I think this will help you guys, people that are, again, kind of solo experts, coaches, consultants, what have you, that aren't having a lot of success, just getting started, maybe have no paying clients, and you want to try to use some free outreach methods. Organic is effective. You also have to know your platform. I'm not talking too much about different ones. I mean, sometimes you guys know your audience is LinkedIn. Take some of these and adapt them there. I'm not saying it's all identical, but this basically what's on my screen here, columns B through E, those 4 columns are all people need to do. It all comes back to what I always talk about with consistency, implementation, and then accountability, which this sheet gives me the ability to hold them accountable. This is just a template. When they get it, they go make a copy, put their name on it, and I track it. But this is just the basic template. So I show them the minimum requirements in box 2, and then 3, what I did in a day when I was doing an example, and I built this out, right? So, and I'll specify B, new DM sent, and I told you we were going to talk a little about cold and warm prospects. That would be cold. That would probably be, again, through what I was talking about with my sniper friend request, and then cold voice note. You can also do it with a text message, an SMS, typed out message, but I prefer voice note for a couple of reasons, and it's all covered in that. But 10 new DMs, meaning somebody I've never spoken with, somebody I've just got connected with. 20 total DMs, meaning people in my warm network, people I should be following up with from 2 days ago, from 4 days ago, from 4 weeks ago. I don't know how long, right? But it's very easy to find 10 new people and 10 additional people, especially once you start doing this consistently. Maybe in the beginning, you won't have the 10 additional people, but you'd be surprised how many people are in your warm network that you don't even know that could probably, benefit from the problem you solve or the solution or the result you provide, things like that. So a lot of times people just don't look in their warm network either, which I find. And there's a lot of stuff right in front of your eyes that people just don't see. But 10 new DMs, 20 total DMs, 15 new friend requests per day. Again, I don't do that 50 or 100, and these are very, very targeted the way I show them in kind of my sniper targeting approach. I should be posting, or as a setter or an outreach expert, especially, I should be posting about 3 per day. I usually tell my setters 1 in an area where there's traffic you control, meaning your own timeline, your own Facebook group. And then 2, probably in other Facebook groups that we're joining based off the modules in the sheet I give my setters, or you guys would do, in your own niches. 2, in other groups where your ideal audience is hanging out, value posts. Post about a great result you got, post about a new, framework that you uncovered that got this great result, right? Value, not in there saying, hey, who wants my services? That's not what we go in there and do. And again, you can tell through the modules I give to the setters, they kind of get training on that. But yeah, you go and you just ask questions sometimes and build rapport and get some market feedback. There's all kinds of little things you can be doing. It's not hard to go post, for columns B through E for me, I've that down to 2 hours or less a day. The people I train and get efficient, I tell them to batch out 2 to 4 hours to implement this. So what I'm saying isn't super time consuming, but too many people just won't do it. They won't do it. And if you do it, you'll do it one day and then you won't the next, and you'll make an excuse. And I've seen that over the years from clients, from colleagues, from people that are no longer doing what I do, that, started with 4 years ago, that are now back to their day jobs. And it comes down to consistency. People either get complacent or they just really don't have the drive. We all got into this for a reason. And I think sometimes we don't think, like, how bad do we actually want this? You could be out working for somebody in a field, in a farm, or in a factory, but instead we're sitting in our houses or in our office on our computer and our phone. We're complaining because we have to create a couple posts and send some DMs. So I always tell people, like, really weigh the options. You got to think about this realistic. If you want it, get out here and do it and implement it. If this is too much and you're not going to do it, don't watch any more trainings and go back to your day job. It's just that simple. So yeah, that's kind of all I ask them to do. And then I ask them to track the groups they've posted, because you'll start to notice, especially when I tell my guys to start off, I say join like a core 10 groups where your ideal audience. Give it about 3 weeks of creating some content, doing some posts. And then you'll really quickly see when you post in 3 groups, let's just say whatever, high ticket closer, PDOCS, and ClickFunnels. And then this day I did the coaching jungle, Billie Jean is marketing, and selling is science, right? And you'll start to see, like, I get more calls booked when I'm posting in these groups and I'm not getting any. So then you double down on those groups and you drop the ones that are not productive and you start to try out some new ones in your 10. You'll have 3 or 4 really winning groups where you're like, dude, this is where I clean up. And you'll have kind of a rotating 5 or 6 bottom groups that you're always kind of testing and getting a 5th winner and a 6th winner, right? But that's kind of how easy this works. The data shows you within about 3 weeks. The thing is, again, many people don't do it for 3 weeks straight to get the data. But within about 3 weeks, the data starts to show you, oh, shoot, I see what groups are getting me calls booked. I see which ones are getting me closed deals, as opposed to which ones are getting me, tire kickers and freebie searchers. So it's not complicated. If you could do B through E and then just track the last 3, which is obviously you're only really got to track the groups. Everybody knows when you get book calls, you see it on your calendar. And when you get closed deals, you see it in your bank account. So you're never going to miss those. But yeah, it's kind of that simple. So last thing I'm going to do is really quickly, I'm going to talk about I said I was going to talk a little more about warm and cold, and then I'm going to go through some examples of some conversations and some DMs that I've booked recently myself. And again, I do this kind of very minimal now, but it's still I'm still doing it regularly. It's just not obviously my main activity. So just very quickly, direct versus indirect outreach or warm versus cold is just somebody you've already had some type of connection or engagement with, or somebody that's cold that you never have. So it already turns to warm engagement. Let's just say that you're doing Facebook group outreach and marketing and lead gen, and you either create a post and you get engagement, or even if they, they commented on a post and you jump in under them offering some insight, whatever that is. Once you've had that connection and then you DM, it's actually become warm, because you'll see in the DM your reference is always this: hey XYZ, hey Bob, we were just chatting in the Nothing Held Back group, and you said you didn't mind if I shot you a DM. You wanted some more insight on your lead generation. Is that still accurate? Yeah, I'd love a little insight. Cool, man. And you dive right into it. So even though you just engage with them, it's still off of, you already have an objective and a topic, and you just dive right into it. Cold is much different. So that's really the only thing, is like, some people think it's cold because, oh, the guy sent me one comment. Well, if his one comment was, yeah, I want to hear more about that, shoot me a DM, then it's warm. The guy has raised his hand and said, I'm interested. I don't care if it was 1 second ago. That changes him from cold to warm right then. When he raises his hand and says, yeah, I give you permission to do that, right? So that's the only thing that really delineates the two. The strategy on how you do it, and what I'm going to run through next, obviously, is, let me bring up, I jotted down a few names of people I've booked recently. So some come to me, and again, that's a matter of being consistent, having my profile primed. I had a couple that just, I'll show you one that the next one I have on my list after this guy here. But I just like walking through my process. So this guy reached out to me first. This first thing he's put in the messenger is a training I filmed, and it's on my YouTube. It's in one of our DAS resources that we give to prospects. So he got that wherever. I didn't know at the time, obviously. He's like, hey, man, I wanted to get started, and this document has information on whether it's the right choice for me. Wondering if you can send me this, right? So in that training, I do go through a big, extensive 49-page documents that we give to our paying data as a client, data as a service clients. But I don't give that to anybody for free, because it is 100% a paid resource, and it would be a disservice to my clients that are paying me thousands of dollars to get into the program to go give it to people for free when it's one of the most important assets. They're probably lucky I actually show it to them for free. But anyway, I get this from time to time, right? Hey, man, can I have that document? And I'm just very straightforward. Yes, you're right. That is like, wondering if this reviewer can explore more. I was like, yes, that's a client document only, unfortunately, right? Happy to set up a brief chat, though, and I can run you through it. So now I can take him on a brief 15-minute call, right? And then I find out more from there, right? So I went right into it because he came to me basically saying, hey, I want this, right? That's warm. The next one I'm going to show you is going to be cold. So that'd be cool if you have time next week. I've already talked with Nathan and Jaden on your team before. So that lets me know, shoot, he's been following us and been calls with us, right? Just trying to figure out the best niches and target which fulfillment model would be best given Audience Lab's capabilities. So I was like, yeah, man, well, that's my jam 100%. I'll be back in town on Tuesday. Hit me up. We'll set something up. And of course, I actually did that while I was on vacation, but I don't usually reply to these, and I kind of forgot about it. So he's already, awesome. I'll hit you up Tuesday. Have a great weekend. And then he's Monday at noon. He's already hitting me up. Hey, do you have a calendar link that I can book? So that's kind of reverse. I'll be honest. It's not often the prospect is budging me to give him my link as an appointment setter, DM setter. I'm usually budging him a little bit, right? But I'm always asking for permission. But either way, that's a good sign. This guy's, taking action. I always like leaving kind of a trail of breadcrumbs and not always making it the easiest sometimes, and see if people just take that little extra initiative. But I told him I'd get back to him Tuesday. It's not Tuesday yet either, right? But I was like, sure, you can use this link. Boom, almost immediately scheduled with you, right? I sent him one more resource that we created between that time, and I sent it to him to go over. And then we had our call. Hey, Ray, thanks so much for the time. Really appreciate it. That was on Tuesday. By Wednesday morning, hey, Ray, and I didn't try to close him at all. I got on the call. I showed him my expertise, which niches, which business models, how he could best, tap this into his network and his skill set and what he does. And basically, and then at the end of the call, I remember him telling me, well, I'm not quite sure. He's like, I think this is what I want, definitely need, but I have another call tomorrow and I want to see what they do. I'm like, dude, you definitely should. I'm like, take a little time. Plus, we had a workshop yesterday at Audience Lab that he wanted to attend. So I was like, hey, man, go to that other call. I would be kind of critical of you if you signed on the first person you talked to. Like, you should look at other calls and other opportunities, 100%. I was like, attend that workshop, hit me up, right? I didn't say anything back to him, as you can see by these messages. And then he says, hey, Ray, Audience Lab is the next move for me. I'll be out on a work trip next week, but I'm ready to go on the 16th. What do next steps look like? Right. And he started talking about how he's thinking of potential niches and verticals. And how do you handle the onboarding? So I was like, next steps, I'll connect you with my advisor when you're ready to get started, finalize agreement terms, collect payment, send you onboarding package. Boom, boom, boom. Like I very cut, cut and dry, especially on these warm people. And then he asked about the onboarding, multiple people. First, a call with the platform audience and support team. Second, onboarding call with me after your support rep call. Awesome. Can I get that first call set up for 9/16? Right. Again, he's kind of pushing, which I love. I'll make the arrangements in the morning when I'm at my desk because I don't set an appointment on my phone. It's just easier. Whatever. Thank you. Have a good night. Likewise, my friend. And then basically, hey, can we get that first call scheduled for 9/12? So he's kind of already bumped it up, and I just verified down here. So you'd like the call to get started on the 12th? Yes. All right, shoot me over your best email and availability of times. Boom, boom. It's already booked in with my advisor. He will enroll him that day into a nice high ticket program. So again, that was a very warm one, right? Let me go to a cold one that I did recently. And this one actually, it might even be in my recent, no, this one I probably did after that. I did on a center call. But when I started this was one I picked at random to show my team my voice note outreach approach, right? So I was actually on a DM center call with my team and they're like, hey, I want to see one live. I had just connected with this guy, so I picked him at random. Then I went and did my voice note the way I always do it, and I show him my strategy. He already hearted that, right? The prospect or the lead. And then, hey, Ray, thanks for reaching out. Networking is an essential function of growth. I'd love to connect. And then he goes and checks out my profile. So that was on the 28th. 29th, I didn't even reply to that. I just gave him a little fist bump, right? I probably would have came back in a day or two, but whatever, I didn't reply to him at the time. He comes back the next day after checking out my profile. Audience Lab looks like exactly what I need. I'm scheduling a demo call. So literally, just from a cold voice note, having my profile primed and it solving a problem, because when I connected with him, I knew he was within the realm of who I help. Like once he checks out my profile, my content, he's probably going to bite a little. Did I think he was going to do that? No, not necessarily. But that's what I'm like. Sometimes it can be that easy. I target the outreach approach. I send one voice note, nothing else, and he's already booking a demo call. Of course, then I went back and forth and gave him more insight and stayed and found out more about what he did, what exactly he's looking for. So he got into some, different topics that not everybody asks about. So he had a more customized, approach, which I truly respect. Like he's into exotic wear, gentlemen's club, CBD, right? Stuff that are called special category, or it depends on what platform you're on. They have a few different names, but they're also known as high risk industries, right? So like, hey, he's asking about case studies, and let me check with Adam for that. I got him back some more information. Got him the top information from our top media buyer and how we have success running these campaigns, and he's booked in for the demo call today. Yeah, Thursday. So yeah, he'll be speaking or spoke with my team today. So I'll be following up with him soon. But that was an example of I literally probably wouldn't even done this outreach just because, unfortunately, I get back to it, but I haven't been super consistent with it because it's not my main focus. But when I'm training people, I just kind of did this one at random. Hey, let's pick up one and do it, and it led to that. I'll show you one more where like this one's got a few voice notes, but I remember how it went. But this is kind of you guys have heard me talk about this, what I call my flip the script strategy. So we all get cold DM from other people. A lot of them are pretty crappy, right? And like, I don't even know if you want to do the flip the script on the real crappy ones. Is this not going to show me because of the encrypted thing? I'm logged in, like I already went in. I don't want to waste all this time. Why did it just do that? Only on this chat? That's weird. Maybe it's something to do with his settings. I don't know. Anyway, so this guy did a video outreach, which is kind of cool. I like a voice note. He did an actual video one. The problem with his is you could tell it wasn't custom. Everyone I do in my voice notes is custom. I go through a very specific process, and I'm looking at the prospect's profile as I send the voice note. His is one that he could send to 50 people, which I picked up on real quick. And I sent them a voice note back saying, hey, man, nice touch on the video outreach, right? I was like, but it's not customized, and I can tell like it's generic to everybody, right? And I was just like, kind of called him out on it. He came back saying, oh, he's like, I do usually make them custom, but I'm traveling right now, so I created a generic one, yada, yada, yada. Basically, I was like, dude, do you know there's a better way? And like, I have a voice note strategy. So I showed him all that, and I flipped the script, and he's asking like how he can learn from me and get into my DM Center program potentially. So there's ways when people do outreach to us, especially when you guys start to understand and get results, where basically I'm just like, in a nutshell, I'm like, and let's go with the most common one, right? We get these DMs from people. Hey, what if I could guarantee you 25 book appointments or 15 new leads or whatever it is, 5 new clients if you don't pay? Like when I get that, my first thing back to them is, hey man, does this actually work for you? And they're like, oh, I'm like, do people actually reply? And like, does this work for you? He's like, not really. I got to send out like 50 of these to get 5 replies. I'm like, that's kind of what I figured. I was like, this wasn't intriguing at all. And I was like, did you even know that I already book 146 appointments a month? So why would I need your 15? He's like, oh yeah. I was like, did you know there's a more effective way to do this so you're not wasting your time on the wrong people, or they actually reply to you and it's intriguing? And they're like, what do you mean? I was like, let me guess, you're following some template or some script that your team leader gave you, right? Yeah, pretty much. I was like, well, again, is that frustrating? You bang your head against the wall, you making money. And then they're like, oh shoot. So that's the process I go through. You can say it however you want, but it's basically those steps. Well, since I couldn't bring up that one, I have another one or two. I believe Dwayne, I'm 99% sure. Yeah, Dwayne. Okay, so this is a good example. If his comes up, should let me, because this is another one that we might represent, we might have our own, or we might start a Facebook group. So this is how I turn my Facebook group into a funnel. Now I have a whole other like module on it, and I'm not going through it here in the last 7 minutes. I'm going to go through this last aspect, wrap it up, and then if anybody's on still, I can't tell, I'm going to give a quick turnover for a question or thought or comment. Dwayne's goes back a little bit, but I just kind of want to show you guys exactly how kind of we use our Facebook group and the new members as a booking funnel as well, which I don't think a lot of people do. And if they do, I think it's very loosely structured. We'll just put it that way. I won't rip it apart any more than that. Come on, how far? I know it doesn't go much farther back, I don't think. Okay, so cool. So this is what I do. So when somebody joins my Facebook group, right, they have to answer a few questions, which are very strategically set up. And he said yes to a very specific thing. So I screenshot it. When I get a new group member, first thing I do before I approve him is I go click on his profile on my phone. I shoot him a friend request, because just because he's in my group doesn't mean I'm connected. Outside of that, that's the first thing I do. Then I screenshot his answers. Then I click approve. Once I do that, once he accepts my request, I shoot him a screenshot with this voice note. Hey, Dwayne, looks like you recently joined our PDOCS community, dude. We're stoked to have you in here. Hope you check out our free live stream, yada, yada, yada. Hey, by the way, you answered yes to question number 1 about wanting to grow your business and getting some help and speed your learning curve. Is that still accurate? Tell me a little about what you're doing, right? So that's what I do every time. I get them to say, yes, I want that result. I think our yes question is like, do you want to see how we grew PDOCS to 1.6 million cash collected the first year we launched? And do you want to shorten your learning curve? And they say yes or no. Anybody says yes, we do that. And then we also tag them in what's called a yes or a welcome post to anybody that said yes. There's welcome posts. This is a more call to action post than a welcome post. You can do that to any new member. But these are more for like the action takers, people like, yes, I want that result, or I want to. So then he gives me a background. Transition to tech, Audience Lab piqued my interest, right? We went back and forth for a while. I gave them our most extensive resource, which this people that are on the kind of, on the cusp or on the fence kind of gets them over, right? And then it wasn't long before he realized that he actually needed some foundations before he joined Audience Lab, and he had to come into PDOCS Camp. So with smaller packages, and what I want to cover really, really quickly is a little byproduct of this is like, you don't even, for some of your companies or some of you setters, you might not always be setting appointments. You can sell in the DMs as well if it's a smaller tier product, and you have the right outline. Now again, this guy, he came into my group. I sent him some value. I went back and forth with him a few days, but then I basically, when I assessed, I was like, oh, what you need now is, I think, what's in our core PDOCS program. Check this out. And then he came back saying, within a week or two, makes sense, joining PDOCS tomorrow morning. Is there any way we can do a quick Zoom call? I can provide me more information and case studies. So he had to wait for his next paycheck or something, whatever it was, right? Sure. When anybody signs up, they get a one-on-one call with me first in the first 48 hours anyway. Great. Can we set that up? Yada, yada, yada. I gave him some availability. He just signed up. This confirmed. Oh, just signed up for PDOCS. And then we did his commencement call, and he's been getting some good results in the program. So that was another one. So a little warm, but definitely warm when he raises his hand, right? And he becomes definitely a warm prospect. He's a little warm because he's coming to the group, but I'd still never engaged with him. But this is all part of how the Facebook group entry process and then that follow-up I just showed you here in the DMs is set up. It turns into warm really quickly. Technically, when he first comes in, he's cold, but once he raises his hand, which he did, again, that's the instance he becomes warm and it becomes a streamlined conversation. And I'm just finding out more about them, providing value. Hey, right now, what you need is this free resource. You see, the first thing I started was an absolutely free resource. That's what he needed right then. That's what was going to get him to go, oh, this is what I need. Or, hey, maybe this isn't for me right now, which he realized it wasn't right now, which is cool. He didn't have the money for it right then, and he wasn't ready for it. He needed to learn some of the stuff that we do in PDOCS. So that worked out well. Yeah, I'll just cut it here. I had a couple more conversations I could bring up, but I kind of covered the cold. I covered the cold voice note. I covered a warm guy that kind of seeked me out right from a training, and then a guy that came into my group. So you guys saw a few different avenues. You saw the DM center process. You saw how I covered at the absolute top of the call, you know, when I went into the eco framework and that simple process that I don't want you to forget. Every conversation should be something like that. You don't always have to use that verbiage, but I like that framework. You see me do it in a lot more like, you know, seemingly or maybe not structured looking, you know, verbiage and technique in my conversations, but I'm still doing the same thing. I give you guys the framework and the verbiage that works to be universal. And then when you want to simplify or customize it to how you talk, that's also, you know, you should definitely do that. But it's usually starting off with, hey man, do you mind if I weigh in on this? No, go ahead. Hey, cool. So when we work with our clients, we help overcome X by doing Y. And it's always going to be something like unexpected that he hasn't heard of. And usually as a byproduct, these are the results we see. You see where most people go wrong is they keep trying X, Y, and Z, right? Whatever, I can fill in anything there. They keep trying organic, even though they're successful and they hit a cap when they should start spending some of that profits on the paid, whatever it is, right? Like, yeah, that's where most people go wrong. See, what we do when we work with our clients is yada, yada, yada. Does that make sense? So when you kind of go through that process of, hey, this is what you're currently doing. This is the new unexpected way. These are the results we see from that. Does that make sense? When they say yes, that means they're curious to find out more. And that's what we're kind of always doing. Sometimes that curiosity is just to get them to say, yes, I want to check out your free masterclass. And my free masterclasses and call to actions and events and challenges are also set up with further call to actions, and they're set up with funnels in there. So that's something I was going to get into, but we're already 45 minutes in. I went fast and covered a lot. So this was a great live stream. This was pretty much just me teaching a straight lesson. And there was a couple of people that hopped on and off the Zoom, but I didn't stream straight to the group here. So I'm sure a lot of you guys will be watching this on the replay. If there was any of the assets that I covered or talked about in trainings, I'm not going to go list them all in the description. Just comment below wherever you're seeing this, YouTube, Facebook, what have you. If you want the, you know, to see the DM training that I talked about, see some examples, and here's some examples of how I do them. I think even in that, I go through the responses that I get, which are really nice to hear as well. So that is just a crash course in DM setting, everything I provide, and all the expertise I can jam into 45 minutes, guys. We'll see you next time. And next week, we